I, 30 female, have been with my partner, 30 male, for over 10 years. We have been in a very stable and happy relationship and have just decided to get engaged back in August. Shortly after becoming engaged, my partner's parents lashed out at us. They told my partner that if he moves forward with marrying me, he will no longer be considered their son. He is no longer welcome in their home. They will not attend the wedding and he will be cut out of their will. Backstory: his family is extremely wealthy and from Germany. Their parenting style always struck me as firm and lacking affection, but nonetheless, I had a somewhat warm relationship with them until about 3 years ago. My family is quite poor. I imagine my family as the sort of family you wouldn't want your wealthy, artistic, overachieving tennis-playing son to join. They are uneducated, live paycheck to paycheck, and struggle often to put food on the table. I took out loans when I was 17, moved off to college, and never looked back. Though I love my family, it is complicated. There's a lot of addiction and mental health challenges that come with living in poverty. The two families never merged. They met 2 times, about 9 years ago, and never hit it off. They were essentially complete opposites. But my partner and I loved each other and accepted that. Now, the conflict. My partner's parents moved to Silicon Valley about 6 years ago, leaving us in Massachusetts. They flew us out to California a few times and tried hard to convince us to move to California. I firmly held the belief that I didn't want to move to California. My whole life was in Massachusetts. All of my friends and my huge family. I couldn't imagine. Moving to California was never in the cards for me. My partner's parents made offers to get us in California, but I refused for years. After 3 years of trying to get us to move to California, they offered to pay me to get a master's degree in California. They also offered to pay for our first year in California. They told us they would give us $10,000 per month salary. I sobbed. I told them I could never accept this and that I know how money ruins relationships. My partner's father hugged me and begged that we accept the offer. He said, "Please, I want nothing in return. All I ask is that you come to California and be happy here." They convinced me to accept the money by sharing how much they donated to charity each year. Now, at this point, we were 7 years into our relationship. My partner and I kept our finances separate. I always paid for half of rent, bills, and all of my student loans on my own. While I watched my parents suffer and struggle with money, I had never asked for anything from them. I was in a career I was unhappy in, teaching, and I felt that they genuinely wanted me to be happy. I thought that they had begun to view me as a daughter, and that this is what being a wealthy child felt like. We moved to California, and I immediately felt the tension. They fired their nannies and expected me to watch their daughter, now 19, with severe special needs, while I was pursuing my graduate degree. I told them that I was happy to watch my sister-in-law often. However, I didn't feel it was fair to fire all of their nannies, since there may be days I cannot watch her. His mother said to me, "We pay for your life, and you also want me to pay for a nanny?" I realized that I had made a mistake. It took less than a week for my partner's parents to begin to use their money as power over me. She left angry, and from that moment on, I watched their daughter when they asked. I watched their daughter at a minimum of 1 evening per week, but oftentimes full days on the weekends and multiple days in a row. If I had plans when they asked me to watch her, they expected me to cancel my plans. I watched their daughter for 3 years, regularly. I felt angry and confused, and began to feel more resentment towards them. And they started to feel taken advantage of, that I accepted the money. I attempted to have an open conversation with them several times about the tension I was feeling in their home. I told them something didn't feel right here, and asked if I had done something wrong, or if they were angry. They told me I was just over-emotional and too sensitive. I started to feel crazy, but I stayed quiet and respectful. They haven't spoken to me since August. They told my partner that I was a parasite and that I manipulate him into doing whatever I want. They said that it is a big mistake to marry into a de-addicted family, their words, not mine, and that I won't ever amount to anything because I chose a useless, low-achieving career that will never make money, just like my father. My father was the son of poor Canadian immigrants. He earned his GED after dropping out of high school and became a firefighter 30 years ago, before college was required. He has saved countless lives, but doesn't have a penny to his name. I am a clinical counselor, working with children and adolescents with severe mental illness. When I asked why I was a parasite, their reasons were essentially every Christmas gift they had ever given me, of their own free will. I never asked for any of it. Granted, they did give awesome gifts. Things like iPhones, Apple Watches, and Broadway musical tickets. They said I never thanked them and never gave anything in return. Well, I always made them handmade gifts and thanked them repeatedly with my words, but I could never provide anything of monetary value. I gave my time watching their daughter over hundreds of times. I am just at a loss of words. I had been sensing the tension. I tried to address it a few times with no success. I never expected things to turn out like this. My partner and I have been grieving almost as if they've died. We are trying to pick ourselves back up, but don't know how to move on. We have lost all financial and familial support just before our wedding, aspirations to buy a home, and starting our family. Though we both have decent paying jobs and we know we will be okay, it's hard to feel financially steady for these big life moves when we were always going to have help, and now we won't. Even if we repaired, we feel we couldn't ever accept money from them again. My questions to you: what do you make of this situation? Where did I go wrong? How should I move forward? I still haven't spoken to them, and I am harboring some serious anger about what they've said and how they can just drop me and their son like a sack of potatoes. He is an amazing, kind, genuine man and doesn't deserve this. Really, just any insights or advice welcomed. Thank you in advance. Your only mistake was being naive. You should have not taken their bribe. After that, once they made the strings they wanted attached apparent, you should have said no. However, at no point did you act in an immoral manner. Your in-laws are horrible, evil human beings who believe they are allowed to treat anyone and everyone as servants. You and your fiancé are going to be much better off without them. You do not need them. You can be very happy without them. But you need to tell him clearly that you are never going to allow yourself to be manipulated ever again. You deserve to be treated better. You are never going to let them treat you like that again. So, you are choosing not to bow down to emotional blackmail. He has to think long and hard, can he do it? Because if you can't, you don't want him to choose you and then resent you down the line. Because he has been estranged from his parents, who will likely try to reach out and put their hooks in him again. They are going to be uninvited from the wedding. Nothing will change that. In the future, you will be open to letting them back into your life. But they will need to sincerely apologize, and the two of you will have very firm, clear boundaries. If they offer money ever again, the response will be, "We will graciously accept your gift, but know that we will not let it sway us in any of our decision-making. This is a gift, not a purchase." I dearly love my cousin Vera. When we were kids, I definitely idolized her. But as we grew into our teens, the relationship became more equal. We both grew up in a small town where our family is one of the founding families, for lack of a better term. So what should be a small non-issue has become hot gossip and a major headache. Here's what happened. Vera married a boy, Alex, who's part of another founding family in our town. Alex, awkward as it is to say, was widely known back in the day to have had a crush on me when we were kids. From what I remember, he told his mom that he was gonna marry me when he was 6. And I guess the adults thought it was a cute story because it was one of those anecdotes that got repeated ad nauseum at any get-together. Now, to be clear, nothing happened between us. This boy was too shy to ever actually talk to me, though he was popular and had enough self-confidence to be in a band in high school. He would send his friends over with gifts like books or bookmarks or seashells. He knew I collected them. But when I would try to say thank you, he would just turn red and nod, then leave. I kinda get it. It was a lot of pressure when it felt like practically the whole town was watching our every interaction, like their personal telenovela. Anyway, I left town to go to college in a faraway city, and 2 years after I left, I got a call that Vera was about to marry Alex. It was sudden, and apparently she was pregnant, though no one in either clan even knew that they were together. It was a scandal to say the least, and I figured back then that Vera was probably dealing with enough shock and disbelief from everyone that I decided I wasn't going to pile on anymore. I called her, expressed congratulations and support, tried to sense if she was happy. She was, and defiant of what anybody else in our hometown had to say about it. We agreed that our families meddled too much anyway, and she asked me to come to the wedding that weekend. It was too short of notice, and I couldn't go, but I did call in a favor with a photographer friend and got them inserted in his schedule so that they could have nice photos. All was well. Alex became part of our family, though we still hardly talked beyond the most casual of hellos whenever I was in town. Years later, last month, I was home for a visit, and I attended the 100th birthday party of the matriarch of Alex's clan. It was a big event with most of our families there, and I spent the time catching up with everyone. I especially focused on Vera's second child, 10-month-old Lena, because it was my first chance to bond with her. So I was carrying her around, and she was in my arms when I got the chance to pay my respects to Alex's grandma, the one turning a century old. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, and she started happily and loudly talking about how the baby looked so much like Alex, and how she always knew we would end up together, and how Alex liked me from childhood, and it was fate. I guess she forgot that Alex didn't marry me. He married my cousin. It's impolite to interrupt your elders in our culture, but I cut in as soon as I could and gently corrected her. But it was too late, as the aunts and uncles nearby had heard what she said and thought it was hilarious. They'd been drinking, and started in on reminiscence about how we were childhood sweethearts. We never actually were, but they just waved this away. So that was supremely awkward. But I never got to see how Vera or Alex reacted because I had to skip the rest of the party for another engagement, planned long before this, across town. I left the next day. Now I'm back in the city, but people from back home are telling me that the whole thing has grown into a clusterfuck beyond all reasonable proportions. There's Facebook drama between our clan and Alex's, and I have no idea how to react. My sister told me that Alex has been out drinking almost every night with his high school buddies, and Vera and the kids have been staying at her parents' place. Vera's mom is apparently giving mine the cold shoulder, and Vera's also not responding to my texts. I don't know how to fix this. Another thing is, I want to go home soon, for good. That was the meeting I went to after I cut my stay at the party short. An old friend is coming home to stay after years of working overseas and wants to start a business in our town, and wants me to be a part of it. But now I feel like Vera wouldn't welcome the news. I had no idea I was even a point of contention in their marriage, but it must have been a sore spot all these years. This is so beyond absurd to me, but I'm reminding myself that I don't know how their marriage has been, and maybe one little insecurity could blow up to a big thing if not addressed properly. I want to know what I could do to help smooth things over. I want my friendship with my cousin back, and to get to know her kids when I come home. Since you did nothing wrong, you have nothing to smooth over or apologize for. You could call Vera and ask her what the deal is. Let her vent, but definitely correct any misinterpretation she may have. Do not talk to Alex or ask Vera about Alex. As far as your future plans, it's a bad idea to let a mistake made by some 100-year-old broad determine your choices. Move back and let these people sort themselves out. Update. A couple of commenters suggested that I include a letter to Vera in my customary birthday gift for her daughter. That was 2 weeks after my post. I sent my gift, along with a handmade card for Vera, with a chibi drawing of Frodo and Sam that I asked a friend to draw. I introduced her to Lord of the Rings, and we both love it. Inside the card, I wrote that I missed her, and that no matter what, she could count on me to always be on her side. I made no reference to Alex or the whole debacle, and I did my best to sound upbeat, but also sincere. I had no idea whether or not I should expect a response. To my relief, she sent me a video from a new phone number of my niece opening the gift, And in it, Vera was smiling and saying thank you and that they missed me too. In the message with the video, she said it was about time that we did a movie marathon again and we should meet up on my next visit home. We did meet up last weekend when I flew home to make some decisions with my new business partner that I talked about last time. Vera and I had coffee. I admit I felt a little awkward about the Alex-shaped elephant in the room, but I had resolved that I would let her take the lead in that matter. It's up to her if she wants to talk about it or not. So far, she hasn't brought it up, but we had plenty of other news to catch up on. Fortunately, she reacted positively to my news that I would be moving back home permanently next year to start a business and be closer to my new little bro. Vera's always been supportive of my dreams, and that hasn't changed. She and the kids are also living with Alex again, and I wanted to suggest couples therapy for them, but held back. Not until she asks my advice. Another thing I didn't tell Vera was that I had finally replied to one of the drama-stirring Facebook messages from Alex's older sister. She was saying sorry if I'd been hurt by being reminded of what could have been between Alex and I. I told her emphatically that nothing about Alex and Vera's relationship hurt me, and that the only thing that hurt was seeing my cousin embarrassed and in pain. I said that Vera was one of the most cherished members of our family, and that they were lucky to have her be a part of theirs through her marriage to Alex. I asked them to stop bringing up the fantasy of Alex and I being together since it was always awkward and never had any basis in reality in the first place. I was very firm in that last part, more firm than I've ever spoken to her. She's 10 years older than me. It's possible that she may have taken offense because she hasn't replied and there have been several vague posts on her profile. But I've said my piece, and that's the only communication I've had with any of them since. I'm hoping my words would sink in and make a difference somehow.